Well, Eric, getting things kicked off here this week was last week you kind of left us with a note of, better flow coming in the United States for bringing us some, much needed precipitation for many areas that were kind of missing out on some things here recently.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of a recap of what's going on for a lot of those areas that were expected to get precipitation. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. There was a hope last week that we would see this area that's quite large now from Texas through the Delta, the Ozarks, even the Ohio River Valley. But we're expecting, I mean, some really good rains in here over the next 7 to 10 days. The thought was that we could get these systems farther to the north, and they're just not there. The waves are too flat. And what's going on here is you're getting these what are called cutoff lows. So the lows come down, they cut off over California. Do you hear about all the flooding in California this weekend? And they just kind of slowly move across the country and they emerge here and then they exit through the mid-Atlantic. And that's boring. Man, I mean, it gives you rain. We could get rain in here, but it's not the true like screaming flow from the southwest. And as a result, we tend to just get slow moving, cumbersome low pressure systems versus the high powered, late fall storm systems that we can typically get. So the issue here is that this is rain. I mean, we need this rain. Don't even get me wrong, because I mean, look at the last 2 weeks. That whole region's been extremely dry down there. We've got to get some moisture into this area quickly. We know it's already mostly in drought anyway. But the way that it's kind of coming through is such that, all right, we're getting some rain here, but not in the southeast, not in the northern plains, not in the Canadian prairie. And it's just giving us an interesting flavor to this pattern. The other story is this, man. Okay, we just had, look at this. This is how mild the last 4 or 5 days were. Super major warm up in the country. Big ridge came through. And this is what we expected to be after Thanksgiving. I mean, there is the potential to unlock some brutally cold air that's going to come out of Western Canada and just, I think, snake all the way to the East Coast during the first week of, first, maybe 2 weeks of, of December. So these are the big stories where we're getting moisture and where we're getting temperature change. Now, all of that is being born right now in the Pacific Jet, which is still one dimensional. There's just one piece to it, not two. And it's kind of ripping here across the open Pacific Ocean, but it's got quite a bit in it. And if we get a look at the latest all hazards map, not a lot going on now, but it's going to start to get a bit more exciting here in the near term. Let me show you this. Let's see if we got a new update. It should have, yeah, we've got the new model running here. So I'm going to show you the high-res NAM prediction of where these systems are going to go. And I want to pay attention to the first one coming into the plains. Now, if you look, north of parts of Nebraska to South Dakota, and then Iowa and Minnesota, there's a low curling through here on which we could get a little bit of snow. Maybe 1, 3 inches in that region, maybe 4 or 5 in places. Look at this. Let's go back and forth tonight into tomorrow morning. But that's not a big rainmaker and certainly not a big snowmaker. See what I mean? These systems are just not like the big dogs that can rip through this time of year. We're going to see another one coming through California here, and this is also going to eject, late in the week. But as we look out there longer term, what kind of snow are we looking at? Well, the first system, yeah, there it is. There's your chance of an inch. And then we have the next system coming through here. But there's a lot of mild air in the near term preventing this from being a big system. So can I show you them both here? GFS left European right. We've already seen that system. Watch the next one come out. This is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Now you see that? That's coming out of the southern plains through Texas, Oklahoma, going through the Delta, stretching its frontal boundary here through parts of the Midwest. And it's going to be bringing with it some rain, but you don't seem to get it in Iowa. See how that? You're going to miss that in Iowa? And it exits to the East Coast. Well, then what happens? There's another cutoff low coming into California. So what does it do? The same thing. See that? So if we keep doing that, we leave the northern tier of the country out of the flow. And that's why over the next 10 days, really wet conditions on the Red River, wet conditions in Southern California and Arizona, but then a hard line right, I don't know, on 74, what is this? 72 to 36, that region, just south of it wet, dry, north of it dry. And the GFS is kind of in similar view of it. So I look at it and I go, well, who's dry? Well, the next 10 days, the probability of staying below half inch, if you are in this area, then man, it's a very dry pattern. Where it's white, that's where we expect it to be wetter. Now, this will eat away at the drought. But if you're wanting any of these systems to bring in snow, other than the little skip of snow I mentioned here and some snow in the Western Mountains, we're not talking about much. It's too mild. But we'll get out there farther and start to see some changes. By Thanksgiving week, this is the day before Thanksgiving, I'm very curious if this trough is going to exist. Because if it does, you can see the southwest flow on the southern side, and it's possibly going to kick off, I think, a decent system somewhere in this vicinity around Thanksgiving. And if that decent system comes through, it's what follows it that's going to be quote unquote fun. Now, Dawson, I know we're talking about some near-term weather. It's late in November. There's still some fall field work going on, but we're kind of getting to that time of year where we're just like, all right, Eric, this is great to talk about. What the real story is, what is happening in winter to get me ready for 2026's growing season? And I'll tell you, if what comes in behind this system really does what I think it's going to do, we're going to be putting down quite a bit of rainfall across much of the South. We need that. We don't want drought to be there come April. So anything we can get down there now is good. We know that the chances for snow begin to increase toward the end of the month. It's not now, but in that last week of November, systems get going, they get a bit more active, and there's these chances of seeing some heavy snow. And the risk starts in the Western and Canadian prairie, but it moves east with time in terms of the cold weather. So let me show you that real quick. Frost risk right now, nothing out of the ordinary for this. This is a pretty typical map. Temperature wise, here's today's highs, tomorrow's. I mean, look, we're not seeing too much in the way of cold air except in the southwest, but that's just cloud cover driven. Very mild out ahead of it. Even out there to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're still warm for this time of year. It's what comes after that that we're all kind of watching. There's the next 5 days. That's day 5 through 10. Now, here's what happens come Thanksgiving and after. Ready? That's the beginning of the fun right there. And what it could do, I think the National Weather Service has probably got a pretty good handle on this. I think they're seeing the same things we are. That end of November, first 2 weeks of December, much below average temperatures are expected to come through here. And we're going to see the moisture pick up as well. I think there's going to be some good early season snows in December, and I'm okay with that. That's water on top of the soil that we could possibly use. So that's my near-term outlook, Dawson.
Yeah, definitely some temperatures to be on the lookout for. But of course, the conversation does continue to be, yeah, eating away at a lot of those drought areas. And so, yeah, to your point, we don't want to discount what is it so far expected for the Southern Plains, the Mid South, really important moisture to bring back into a lot of those areas. But focusing on that longer term range, you know, to your point of looking at the CPC outlooks and other things, is there
Yeah.
that better chance of getting a lot of this moisture that's needed into a lot of those major growing areas for a lot of folks, in other parts of the Midwest and other parts of the Northern Plains, essentially?
Yeah. Well, to show everybody what you're talking about, this is the latest soil moisture. I mean, look at this, terrible. It's a huge section of the breadbasket of North America there that's very dry. It's super wet in California, but not here. And if we're going to break that down, we've got to see some major changes. Now, unfortunately, I think some of the major changes are going to come with some Arctic air first. If you look right now, the polar vortex is massively disrupted. It's very weak. That's what all these blue lines suggest. And if we watch it, what you would normally see on this animation over the North Pole is the deepest blues sitting over the Arctic. That's a strong polar vortex start to winter. It's cold up there and mild everywhere else. Nope. We're breaking away from that pretty easily, which is why we see most of the models to start off the month bringing in some pretty cold air in December across this corridor. Now, the question is, are we going to get some moisture out of that? Can we also get snow with it? Can we do anything? And the answer right now, I think, is yes. The time frame of November 25th to December 25th, look at this. That northern tier of the country's got a good chances. We're a little drier in the Sun Belt, part of the Cotton Belt, maybe the Southeast, maybe in the Southeast, but man, I think we're going to be getting ourselves into an early and active winter, which is what I want. I want that because I'm worried about the overall risk of maintaining drought in places. And we got some other things going on too. We have the La Nina, which is here. We have the negative Indian Ocean dipole, which is there. And this is about to die, which is going to let La Nina reach its just full on peak here very, very soon. And what I'm curious about is this. Now, I don't ever show you this graphic when we talk, but I got to show it to you now. I'm going to outline right here. See the blue contour lines? That starts on the 25th of November and goes to about the 10th of December. And that is suggesting a big trough of low pressure to live in this area. So you ask about early winter precipitation beating back the drought. Well, it turns out that having this particular feature, this deep trough in that area, is very common during La Nina winters. And if you look historically, we tend to build a big ridge over the Aleutian Islands, a big ridge that goes up in the North Atlantic, and cross-polar cold air comes out in this region. And years that look similar to this one, they typically have this type of temperature pattern come December. And with that's going to come snow. And that's why I'm thankful and hopeful that I think we're going to start to eat away at this. What is not known is the way the second half of winter works. Those cold starts in November tend to give us more mild southeast and much colder west. But I say tend to, it's not like a guarantee that that's going to happen. And you say, well, what about the precip? Well, In Decembers that are cold, we're near normal in the northern tier states, but we're a bit drier in the south and southeast. Will it be one of those years this year? I don't know. It's wet there now. Thank God it's wet down here now, but we just have to wait and see. By the way, just looking out there farther, going into January to February and the years that are similar to this year, we just tended to be drier in the Sun Belt, part of the Cotton Belt and Southeast. We'd actually tend to have a bit more normal to active winter across the rest of the country. I think that's where we're heading right now in this pattern as we go forward. And volatile winters tend to give us good starts to the 2026 growing season or to the subsequent growing season in any year. But that's what I know now. I'm just going to come back to one solid point. I think we need to be preparing for some easy access to Arctic air at the end, very end of November and the start of December.
Yeah, definitely going back to your point, this week and then last week, of course, too, is just that anticipation of an active December essentially to kick things off. And so
Yep.
hopefully that activity brings, the benefits that we've been looking for much of this start of this fall season as well.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think the other question with all of this is what does the same thing do in the Southern Hemisphere? So let's just talk about that
Yeah.
real quick here. If we go down to South America, let's get to this. First of all, we did get some rain that came out of Argentina this weekend into southern and central Brazil. That was needed. Interestingly enough, if you look, we've had more sporadic rains in the center west all the way to the east, and then more sporadic rains down into southern Brazil and Argentina. The wettest area has been like Paraná. It's kind of neat to look at it. If you go to Brazil and choose Paraná, they've had near normal rains for the last 60 days, but it's been a bit drier than normal in Mato Grosso, a bit drier than normal in Goiás. So there's pockets of dryness. But the models still are doing the same thing they've been doing for months. That's the European model 15 day or 14 day. Here's the GFS 14 day. Look at the difference they have in the center west. GFS is dry there, European is wet. Models are all over the place. They only agree on this. And that's going to be a major concern. Will Argentina and southern Brazil struggle for moisture later? I think there's risk that they do. In fact, if you go out and look at the longer term models, the European is super wet in this area, which is very typical of La Nina and dry down there. But even the GFS extended looks very similar with only the Amazon being drier, but certainly this is a factor. So I'm just going to say it this way, Dawson. I think that at some point this summer for South America, our winter, a weather story is going to emerge in Brazil. I think there is going to be I think it's going to be a southern versus northern story. It's not there yet. I don't think the markets care at all about Brazil weather just yet. I think that they think, like you and I have been talking, that Brazil might outacre any early weather problems. But if we find ourselves in a situation where Argentina and southern Brazil, maybe Paraguay and Uruguay have some issues with drought come midsummer, it could start to turn the narrative toward a more favorable discussion. I don't think it's going to come on soybeans, but it might come on corn. And so I think we need to watch that carefully.
Yeah, something to think about because you kind of put a timestamp on it last week was, the crop establishment as far as, for all intents and purposes has been going fairly well down in South America. It's just we
Sure.
got to look out maybe 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, kind of getting into December of, okay, are they consistently having this below average precipitation that they've already been having for a little bit of time already to kind of
Yeah.
see like, is that going to be an issue here moving forward?
Yeah. Let's do this. If we go to Argentina, let's click Cordoba, Santa Fe. Yeah, they're doing okay on precipitation. Entre Rios, but in Brazil, if you go to Rio Grande do Sul, they're in deficit.
Yeah.
I think it's something to watch. And by the way, this is a lot of rain. If you get an extra 5 inches of
Yeah.
rain in Minas Gerais and Bahia, these are big growing areas. That's Goiás there, Tocantins. That could be too much water, believe it or not, if this verifies. So I think there's a story, but I just don't think it's getting any sort of attention in the markets until all of a sudden it will. And that's why we talk about it every week so that we stay ahead of it.
Yeah, it's definitely something we've been watching closely here, too, just to see if there's something that emerges and catches a little bit of attention. Going to
Yep.
be continued to focus on, yeah, how the winter precipitation is going. Are we truly, doing something that can eat away at these moisture deficits? If that comes in December, we're going to be, not talking about a lot of alleviation until spring with
Yeah.
the potential of that melting, but just something to keep an eye on and see how things are progressing moving forward. And happy to have you along with for the journey and get your insights, Eric.
Yeah, you bet. I think you're right. I think it's going to be Does winter undo any of fall's, problems, or do we have to wait till April? And
Yep.
some years we just wait till April.
Yeah, for sure. But always appreciate your insights for this week, and we'll talk next time.
Okay, take care, Dawson.